Jimmy Midnight here with another special report. How can I critique something so integral to my childhood? Everyone has something that drives them, be it wealth, knowledge, or professional pride. Every boy above a certain age spends every waking moment obsessing over games. For me, my preteen and teenage years were dominated by Mortal Kombat 2. If I wasn't playing it, I was watching others play it. If I wasn't watching it, I was reading about it. And if I wasn't reading about it, I was thinking about it. Every waking moment was spent saving up for the next trip to the arcade, and even $5 would last at least half the day. When it was ported to home consoles, I got caught up in the wild hysteria, even if, objectively, they were god-awful, with graphics, music, and sound effects a pale imitation of the original. But my burning passion for MK2 remained, to the point where I bought my own arcade cabinet when I got my first apartment. And then I moved, got married, and started a family, and was forced to sell my pride and joy. My true firstborn. Not that I'm still managing my grief or anything. What is it about MK2 that so captivated me, and does it hold up today? To answer that, let's journey back to the early 90s. George Bush was well into his third year in office, Batman the Animated Series redefined the Dark Knight for a new generation, and Batman Returns, Patriot Games, and Wayne's World were tearing up the box office. And an innocuous fighting game called Mortal Kombat hit arcades in August of 1992. With its digitized graphics and over-the-top violence, Mortal Kombat was like nothing gamers had ever seen before. After defeating your opponent, you could brutally annihilate them in what became the series' trademark fatalities. The yellow-clad Ninja Scorpion burnt his enemies to a crisp, Sub-Zero ripped out their spine, and Kano ripped out their heart, to name a few. Like the kung fu movies the game took inspiration from, Mortal Kombat was centered around the titular martial arts tournament, which decides the fate of Earthrealm and a parallel plane called Outworld. If one side wins 10 victories in a row, they'll decide the other's fate. And Outworld's champion, the monstrous Goro, had won 9 straight. And that's where the game starts. Players were hooked, and the dollars and quarters poured in. In 1993, Mortal Kombat's total gross was higher than Jurassic Park's $300 million at the box office. When it was ported to home consoles, it sold 3 million cartridges in its first 3 weeks. So with a cultural phenom like that, a sequel was just a matter of when, not if. And in November of 1993, we got the Empire Strikes Back of video games. To start, the first game's roster was expanded from 7 to 12. The first game's palette swap ninjas Scorpion and Sub-Zero returned, and the hidden character Reptile joined the main cast. Hollywood beefcake Johnny Cage came back, as did the Thunder God Raiden, Shaolin monk Liu Kang, and the OG boss Shang Tsung became a playable character. New to the cast were the palette swap sisters Katana and Lina, Special Forces operative Jax, the grotesque creature Baraka, and Kung Lao, a Shaolin ally of Liu Kang's. I always preferred Katana with her brutal combos and inventive finishers, but I was 12 when the game came out, so I might have had ulterior motives. And the overall stakes were raised dramatically. This time the game took place in Outworld, and the final boss was the realm's emperor Shao Kahn. Though imposing as he was a pussycat compared to his lieutenant Kintaro, who was sort of like a combination of a tiger and a centaur. And he was arguably the hardest boss in Mortal Kombat history. Mortal Kombat 2 was a dramatic upgrade over its predecessor. The digitized graphics were markedly improved, and MK2 was the very first arcade game to use Williams' DCS sound system, so the audio and sound effects popped. Every grunt, scream, and explosion assaulted your senses and enveloped you like a blockbuster at the cinema. The controls were tightened, and it was now far easier to perform mid-air combos. And the blood flowed like rain in London. Every kick, punch, uppercut, and especially each fatality produced a literal fountain of the red stuff. And speaking of which, every character now had at least 2 fatalities, as imaginative and gory as ever, along with 2 joke finishers. A babality, which was exactly what it sounded like, and a friendship, which had you do something inexplicably silly, like bake them a cake or pull a rabbit out of a hat. But I'd argue the true viral quality of MK2 was in its laundry list of secrets and rumors. It started with the special moves and the fatalities themselves. Some cabinets had move lists parading around the CRT TV, but for most kids it was all about word of mouth. 3 of the levels even had special stage fatalities. Then there were the hidden characters, 3 to the original game's 1, and their methods of discovery were increasingly elaborate. For the green palette swap female Jade, you had to use only low kick in one of the rounds preceding the question mark. For Smoke, you had to wait until you got to the portal stage, and then press down and start if the sound designer Dan Forden appeared in the corner of the screen and belted "Toasty!" And he only appeared after the occasional uppercut. And for Noob Saibot, whose title was the last name of designers Ed Boon and John Tobias reversed, you had to win 25 versus battles in a row. After 250 versus battles, you could play the 1972 classic Pong. Of course, then there were the rumors that didn't pan out. Nudalities, brutalities, animalities, though the latter 2 were eventually added in future titles. An especially wild rumor had it that if you beat the game without losing a round, you'd get to fight the American Gladiators. So, 30 years later, does the game still hold up? Heck yeah, it does! The controls are smooth as butter, the digitized characters still look impressive, and even Dan Forden's soundtrack is darn near perfect. In fact, it was MK2 that got me interested in game scores in the first place. And it's still one of the best 2-player experiences that doesn't involve 30-hit combos. Mortal Kombat 2 was a product of its time in the best possible way. Alongside ECW, the X Games, and grunge rock, it epitomized the 90s. And yet, paradoxically, it doesn't feel dated. Every time I pick up the game today, sadly not my own cabinet, it puts a big goofy smile on my face. A reminder of happier times, when we all enjoyed decapitating, disemboweling, and blowing each other up in the game. So I give Mortal Kombat 2 5 joysticks out of 5. Thanks for joining me for another special report. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my televisual program, and I'll see you next time. This is Jimmy Midnight signing off.